Labor Minister and my Sky News colleague, Graham Richardson. Richo, national security, the Ukraine conflict, obviously so much at stake in terms of lives lost, this humanitarian disaster that we're seeing unfold on our screens. It is tragic in a political sense for the Prime Minister. What's your read in terms of how this has an impact on him? Because we are, of course, only a couple of months from the election.
We are, although I don't think that Australians are going to allow the Ukraine to have a massive effect on our election. We just don't have skin in the game. But obviously, every time a question of defence comes up, Labor's antenna goes up, because Labor's usually the one suffering when it comes to comparisons on this. And so Albanese has been really, really careful to at least, if not out Morrison, at least be part of it, at least be equal to Morrison in the condemnations. And that's probably about the best Labor can do. But there's one thing for sure, military exercises tend to help governments. They don't tend to help outsiders trying to become governments. So it's a time for Morrison to try and shine. And he needs to, because he's staring defeat in the face and all of his troops know it.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fair assessment when you look at where the polls are right now, Richo, and there's a lot of nervousness, that's for sure, within government ranks. There's one thing the Prime Minister certainly seems to have learned from is the response to the fires. He's been much more assertive or proactive in the wake of the current natural disaster.
Well, he got a huge kick in the backside over that, massive, because he really did stuff it up. You can't put it any other way. It was a complete mess for him, a debacle. And so I think all of his troops just said to him, mate, you will have to pull your socks up. You have to make sure that people know you mean it. When we're in a conflict like this, you've got to make sure you're up there with the best. And I think he's trying hard at the moment, Morrison, to try and satisfy the demands of his troops. And of course, you've got to remember that the further right you get in Australian politics, the more likely you are to be excessively anti-Putin, if you like. And so I think they're all trying very hard to match each other at the moment in being against Putin. And as far as I'm concerned, that's probably a good thing, because I think evil bastards like him do not deserve to prosper.
No, well said. And finally, Richo, when you look at the overall political landscape now, as you said, the government not in a great place, but has Anthony Albanese been able to build his credentials in the eyes of voters that haven't really turned to Labor much in recent years, particularly I'm thinking north of the Tweed in Queensland?
Yeah, it's a very difficult place to win federal seats, Queensland. I've been in the game for 50 years and I can only think of a couple of occasions when we've even looked like we were doing okay. And we never get a majority of Queensland seats. It's interesting because, you've got Palaszczuk, who just seems to rule with great ease, with big majorities. But when it comes to federal Labor, the Queenslanders just won't change over. And you've just had Peter Dutton on. He's the most remarkable campaigner in the entire country. He sits on a 2% margin, election after election. And around him there are 4 and 5% swings, but there's never that swing in his electorate. So you've got to take your hat off to Dutton. He knows how to handle it on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that, Rich. I remember doing a profile of that seat, Dickson, many moons ago, and Peter Dutton had a bit more hair than he does now, but he's always held on to it regardless of the speculation around it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's done a much better job of holding on to his seat than he has to his hair. We'd have to concede that.
Richard, great to see you as always. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Good on you, mate.